Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing into a really fascinating realm.
Yeah, we're looking at the connections, between our emotions, our consciousness, and, well, the very fabric of reality.
And we're doing these mainly through the work of Gregg Braden, plus some pretty compelling science.
We looked at a really interesting YouTube video with him, dug into his background a bit.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack the science that seems to be catching up with ancient wisdom.
Offering a new way, maybe, to understand our lives and the world.
And the guide here is Gregg Braden. He's a 5-time New York Times best-selling author, scientist, educator, Templeton Prize nominee, too.
He's quite a figure, really bridges science, social policy, and human potential. You don't see that combination often.
And his background, before all this, was in problem-solving for Fortune 500 companies for, like, over a decade.
Yeah, you can kind of see that analytical thinking and how he approaches these big ideas, connecting the dots.
Definitely. And his own research led to some big claims, right? Like intelligent information in the genome back in 2003.
And fractal time in 2010. Finding patterns in things that look random. 12 books, 40 languages, 15 films.
It's impressive. And the awards, like the Walden Award, the Illuminate Award, it shows he connects with people.
He does have a real knack for taking complex, almost, out there ideas and making them feel accessible. Inspiring, even.
We really appreciate that, yeah. Makes this stuff easier to grasp.
Totally. So, okay, let's get into the core of it. A really central idea in Braden's work, backed by the science he looks at, is about our emotions.
Right, the power of human emotion.
And how they actually impact things.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the idea is our feelings aren't just internal experiences. They actually influence the building blocks of the world.
Yeah, it sounds a bit wild at first.
A little bit.
But Braden frames it as an internal technology, something everyone has access to. And he argues science is actually starting to, well, confirm it.
And this links to that concept of a field, right? An intelligent energy field connecting everything.
Exactly, which is something you find in, tons of ancient and indigenous traditions.
We've had this idea of interconnectedness for ages.
For millennia. And now Western science, with its own methods, is sort of arriving at a similar place. It's quite the convergence.
Braden brings up Max Planck, doesn't he? The father of quantum physics.
He does. A statement from way back in 1944. Planck basically said that matter, the stuff we see, isn't really solid in the way we think.
He said it comes from a conscious and intelligent mind.
That's the quote. And underlying it all is this matrix of all matter. So this idea of a fundamental field, it's not totally new to science, even if it's getting more focused now.
And people often call this the divine matrix.
Yeah.
Braden describes it as, like, the container for the universe.
Uh-huh. And a bridge between our inner world thoughts, feelings, and the outer world.
So our intentions, prayers, they travel through this matrix.
That's the idea. It's the medium, operating in ways that, well, still kind of challenge standard physics.
He also mentions it's like a mirror, this divine matrix.
Yeah, reflecting back our deepest beliefs, the ones we hold in our hearts, he stresses, not just intellectual ideas.
Conscious and unconscious beliefs, shaping our experiences or relationships.
Exactly. It's like a feedback loop. The matrix shows you what you really believe deep down through what shows up in your life. So you might think you deserve success.
But if deep down you feel unworthy.
The matrix, according to Braden, reflects that deeper feeling. It's quite a concept.
Makes you look at your own life differently, the good and the bad. Maybe they're reflections.
Could be. And this leads him to point out where he thinks science went wrong historically.
2 big assumptions, he says.
Right. 1, that space is empty. 2, that our inner world thoughts, feelings is separate from the outer world.
And science now says both are wrong.
Pretty much. Space isn't empty, it's full of energy. And our inner states, especially what he calls coherent heart-based emotion.
What exactly is that?
Yeah.
Coherent, heart-based emotion.
It's when your heart, mind, and emotions are sort of aligned, in sync. Like when you feel genuine gratitude or appreciation, love.
Okay. And those feelings have an effect outside our bodies.
That's the claim. They interact with this divine matrix. It's not just any feeling. It needs that sort of focused, coherent quality.
How do you get into that state? Meditation?
Things like meditation, mindfulness, yeah. Or just focusing intentionally on feeling grateful or compassionate. It seems to amplify our connection to the field.
Wow. Okay, shifting gears slightly, he also talks about language. Connects it to that movie, Arrival.
Yeah, that was a cool connection. The movie's idea is that language literally shapes your brain, how you think, how you see reality.
And Braden looks at the act of speaking itself. Intimate, involving breath, creating vibrations.
And he contrasts different types of languages. Some, like English maybe, he suggests are based on separation, potentially leading to us versus them.
Versus languages based on connection, promoting unity, cooperation.
Exactly. His point is, the language we use isn't just communication. It actually shapes our brains and how we interact with this matrix. Change the language.
Change the brain. Change your access to the field. That's a big idea.
It really is. And this field idea also changes how we might think about memory.
Right. Traditionally, memory is just neurons firing in the brain, stored there.
But Braden talks about this newer view, that maybe memory isn't just in the brain. Maybe we access it from the field.
So our brains are like receivers, tuning into information that's out there.
Kind of like biological antennas, he calls the neurons. Tuning into the matrix where the memories, maybe as information patterns, actually reside.
He gives that example, the water-based computer chip.
Oh yeah, that's wild. Where the info isn't just in the water droplet, but in a field linked to it.
It's a powerful metaphor for how information might not be physically contained.
Right. It suggests information, memory, knowledge. It might be stored all around us in the field. Access becomes the key thing.
Which ties into that story he tells about his musician friend.
The unreleased music showing up on the radio. Like once it was created, anchored in the field somehow, others could tune into it.
And he had similar things happen with book titles he thought of but didn't share.
Yeah, they'd pop up elsewhere. It blurs the lines, doesn't it? Between individual creation and maybe a collective source.
Makes you think about your own ideas, those flashes of inspiration.
Totally. Braden's point is, maybe that impulse means the world is ready for it. Share your gifts.
Okay, but this still sounds quite conceptual. What about the hard science? The experiments he mentions?
Right, let's get into those because they offer more tangible support. He highlights two main ones. First one, Russian research from '92.
The photons in a vacuum. Particles of light.
Exactly. They put photons in a vacuum vessel. Normally, they're just scattered randomly.
But then they put human DNA in there.
They did. And the photons stopped being random. They actually ordered themselves, lined up following the shape, the geometry of the DNA.
Wow. And the scientists concluded.
They published in '95 saying they were, quote, forced to accept the possibility of a new field of energy being activated by the DNA.
Though Braden thinks it's not new, just newly recognized.
Right. A field that lets our DNA influence matter directly. It's a scientific pointer towards that ancient idea of connection.
Okay, experiment number 2. This one involved emotion directly affecting DNA. From '94.
They took pristine human DNA from umbilical cords, put it in a test tube, basically, but placed it in the energy field of a human heart.
And they already knew negative emotions tighten DNA coils, positive ones relax them, affecting gene expression.
Yeah, that was understood. But this time, they had people intentionally generate positive feelings, gratitude, love, appreciation, compassion.
While focusing on the DNA sample, which was physically separate.
Exactly. And the DNA in the tube started to relax, to unwind, as if it was getting ready to replicate, just from the emotion directed at it.
Even though it wasn't physically connected to the person feeling the emotion.
Right. The conclusion was that people trained in feeling deep appreciation could intentionally change DNA's shape at a distance, which, defies standard physics.
So put those two experiments together. Emotion changes DNA. DNA changes matter.
Leading to the conclusion, human emotion changes the actual stuff our world is made of.
And again, Braden stresses, this isn't magic. It's an internal technology we all have. The potential goes way beyond just like personal healing.
It really cracks open how we think about our influence on reality. Which brings us neatly to the observer effect in physics.
The double slit experiment from way back in 1909. Still baffling.
Totally. Does light act like a particle or a wave? Depends if you're watching it. It's like it knows.
Which has huge implications for things like healing, prayer, remote healing, where intention seems key.
And there are studies showing prayer can have positive effects statistically.
Braden mentions the double slit was done again more recently. Weizmann Institute, 1998.
Yes, and they found something even more specific. The greater the amount of watching, the greater the observer's influence on what actually takes place.
So the more you focus your observation, the more you influence the outcome at that quantum level.
It sounds incredibly like that Buddhist idea, doesn't it? Reality exists only where the mind creates a focus.
Ancient wisdom and modern physics saying similar things, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. Now, Einstein famously disliked this implication of quantum mechanics, called it spooky action at a distance.
He couldn't accept that interconnectedness. believed things were fundamentally separate.
Yeah, and Braden suggests that belief actually held him back from finding a unified field theory. He was looking for connection, but believed in separation.
But his colleague, John Wheeler, he embraced it.
Completely. Wheeler coined the term participatory universe.
Participatory, not just observing.
Exactly. Wheeler said we need to shatter the plate glass between observer and universe. His words were, there are no observers. We must put in the new word, participator.
Wow. So the implication is profound. Our act of looking, expecting, focusing, it actually creates what we see.
That's the idea. From the smallest quantum level to maybe even the larger cosmos. We're not just watching the show, we're part of the cast. We're co-creating it.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap up the key points, we've explored the power of our emotions, how they seem to influence reality through this underlying field.
This interconnectedness of everything, yeah. And how science is starting to see consciousness not as separate, but as an active participant in the universe.
It's this blend of ancient insights and really cutting-edge science, offering a pretty empowering view of our own potential.
Absolutely. A whole new way to look at ourselves and our relationship with, well, everything.
And look, if you found this dive into consciousness and reality as interesting as we have, please do consider subscribing to the show.
Yeah, and hitting that like button really helps us out. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers so we can keep bringing these deep dives to you.
Your support honestly makes a huge difference and lets us keep exploring these kinds of big questions.
It truly does. We appreciate you listening in.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Start thinking about your own heartfelt beliefs. Where is your attention focused? How might that be shaping the reality you experience, maybe in ways you hadn't considered?
And those creative ideas, those impulses you get, maybe they're not random. Maybe they're invitations from that interconnected web suggesting it's time for you to participate, to share.
It's definitely a journey of discovery. Lots more to explore.
For sure. We're excited to keep digging into these ideas in future deep dives. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep exploring.